My name is Paige Smith, and I am a student majoring in communication and media at Clarkson University. Today we are hosting a candidate conversation with Steve Putman, Canton candidate for the District 9 seat at the St. Lawrence County Legislature. Joining him in conversation is Liam Hunt, Professor Emeritus of History at St. Lawrence University and a member of the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County. These nonpartisan conversations with each candidate ask each candidate to explain their positions, records, and ideas. We look forward to a thoughtful and civil discussion of the issues without 30-second soundbite answers and negative campaign rhetoric. Welcome, Professor Hunt. Will you get
Sure, thanks very much. Mr. Putman, let's start with something very basic. What does the Council or the Board of Legislators actually do? I have a feeling the public is a little bit hazy about it.
Well, the way the county government is set up, the Board of Legislators hires a county administrator who oversees all the day-to-day functions of the various departments and department heads. And the Board of Legislators acts as a legislative body. Obviously, they also have oversight over the county administrator. Now, in St. Lawrence County, as I said, it's a hired and paid administrator. You'll find some counties in the state where the county executive is elected. But so our function is fairly broad-based, but I prefer to think of it as being at a sort of the 5,000-foot view. I don't think it's the legislator's job to micromanage the county administrator or the departments.
What are your principal powers and responsibilities as a legislature?
To craft laws, to raise revenue through various forms of taxes and fees, and to provide services to the citizens of St. Lawrence County and everything from public safety to highways to administering. The truth is we administer a lot of state programs that are really required, over which we have very little say.
Right, but your fiscal base, of course, is the county taxation.
Exactly.
Otherwise. What makes you an effective member of this board, and why should you get reelected?
Fair question. I think what makes me effective is that I'm a good listener. Both to constituents that contact me, but also to my fellow legislators, to the department heads, to the county administrator, and that I try to look at issues from various perspectives without jumping to any immediate conclusion.
Is there a partisan divide? Is that a problem at our level?
I would say that there is to a small degree, yes, but
it's not like Washington.
Yeah, no,
Right.
no. As you know, I'm a Democratic candidate. We happen to be in the majority right now, but I am friends and friendly with virtually all. I'm certainly friends with some of the legislators on the other side of the aisle, and actually I say the other side of the aisle. I think that's an important distinction too. Even just the physical setup of the legislature is not by parties, it is by numerical districts around. So Republicans or Democrats are and mixed in together even in the seating. And I think that's more than just symbolic. This particular legislative group of 15, I think has generally worked very well together. Now, I was not in the previous 4-year term of legislators, but I've heard stories and I've heard that it was very contentious. And I think now at least this group of legislators, if we disagree respectfully and still can carry on and look at the next issue.
Sessions of the legislature are open to the public?
Yes, they are.
Are they well attended?
The way the legislature operates is that for 3 Mondays during the month, we convene at 5:30, and there are 3 different, all the services of the county are broken down into 3 different committees: services, operations, and finance. And each department reports to one of those committee meetings. And over 90%, the vast majority of issues that then come up at the monthly meeting have already been debated, discussed, sometimes for multiple months if they're contentious or difficult, before they get to the actual county legislature meeting, which is the first Monday of each month. Virtually everything that's on the agenda of the legislature, which meets on the first Monday at 7 p.m., has already been thoroughly vetted, discussed. Even some things are very routine, but and voted on in committee, and they are all committees of the whole. All three committees are committees of the whole. So where we get the largest attendance is at the monthly legislature meetings. But I think sometimes the public is misled because most of the items at those meetings, just motion, second, vote, pass on to the next.
Not riveting.
Not much discussion, because most of the discussion is before that. But the committee meetings, because they are committees of the whole, there's always a quorum there.
And they are open.
And so they are open, and those are at 5:30 on the second, third, and fourth Mondays. Sometimes that changes. If there's a late schedule, sometimes two committees will be put together, but that's how it functions.
Okay. I want to talk a bit about the problems facing St. Lawrence County, which could go in any direction, but let me try to focus it a little bit. One of the things that many of us talk about is the need, or at least the desirability of keeping more young people in the county, attracting energetic young people to the county. A lot of people who grew up in St. Lawrence County will naturally want to get out for a bit, but would like to attract the best of them back, and would like to attract young people from elsewhere. Any ideas about how that could be done?
Well, it's interesting that we're sitting on the campus of Clarkson University, which I think is probably one of the greater seeds of innovation and potential and entrepreneurship in the county. I think SUNY Canton has a program in that. All four colleges are obviously important to the economic vitality of the county, and I've known a number of young people that have come back to work in either businesses or to work at one of the universities. But I don't think that the county has the most major role in that in some ways. I do think that the governor has done a great job with regionalizing economic development, and as I'm sure you're aware, the president here at the college is the chair of the co-chair, excuse me, of the Economic Development Committee here. We do contract with the Industrial Development Agency to try to entice. Our contract is $400 and some thousand a year with them to entice new businesses to come into the area. We also have county employees in the planning office that seek out grants and those sort of things. I think from the legislator's perspective, I think the best thing we can do is to try to make county government as efficient as we can, so that we're not seen as a county that taxes at such a high level that a company or an entrepreneur would not want to start here.
Yeah. One of the issues that comes up a lot when talking about the economic future and prospects, possibilities, is the question of infrastructure, which covers a lot of different things. There's general agreement, I think, that we need to improve our infrastructure, and a lot of disagreement as to what the priorities ought to be. And so I'd like, let's just say, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being lowest, 5 being highest, how would you rank the importance of the following projects, for example? Further research and planning for a rooftop highway, the so-called I-98, or upgrading Route 11, or improvement of existing bridges and highway services, or expanded broadband access. Let's just go through those, if you didn't mind. First of all, rooftop highway. High, low?
I think that to be honest, my opinion has sort of changed on this, or evolved over the last several years. As I had more and more conversations with people on the Industrial Development Agency, they continually tell me that one of the first questions that companies ask when they look at places where they can build new facilities or locate is, are you within 50 miles of a 4-lane highway? And the answer for that in any part of St. Lawrence County is no. And so I actually I'm a supporter and a proponent of I-98. Now, having said that, I also am not the kind of person who is so focused in one particular area that I can't move beyond that. I know that in some areas of the state, down in the southern tier, I think it was Route 98, don't quote me on that. But anyway, from Binghamton west, there was a long period of time where they expanded the highway, 4 lanes at times. Sometimes it still went through towns.
Right.
Then they did bypasses of towns. I think at the very least, if we had ways from, I mean, Route 11 is 4 lanes now up to Fort Drum entrance. That, you know, in my memory, that obviously wasn't that way. If that could be expanded, and then we could, if there was federal and state funds to bypass Governor and Canton and Potsdam, that would be certainly hugely important to, you know, to economic development. I realize that now as I'm speaking that I didn't exactly answer your question, and I don't know if you want me to rank all of them differently.
Depends
but
on what you're comfortable with. Yeah,
I would say that I still think
we can't do everything at once.
No,
and,
but
and
to
we're
be
not,
honest,
we're not going to build I-98 with our own funds.
and I was going to say, to be honest, that's I think our legislators, our federal and state legislators, and the governor, they want to know if we support it, and I think that's from my perspective. I am a supporter of it. And I know many members of my own party actually are not, but and that's okay. We are going to agree and disagree about a number of things, but I am a supporter of that. However, I think the role of the county legislature, as you said, is fairly small because it's going to be federal dollars, you know, with state support that would drive that kind of thing. Now, to be honest, I'm trying to think. Local roads and bridges, okay? We have, and this legislature, and actually the legislature before this, has been putting a priority for the last, I would say 6-8 years at least, on the bridges in the county. And we are putting, we have rehabbed and rebuilt or whatever. I don't know how many bridges, I can't give you a number, but that is what we are constantly focusing on, and every time there's a chance.
You see a lot of them when you drive around the
Yes,
county.
and you're going to see next spring we were able to get some additional federal monies. The bridge, it's not in my district, but the bridge at Eelwire in between Ogdensburg and Hubleton on the side there, which is going to be replaced. Possibly rehab. Sometimes they don't know until the engineers get in there and look at it. But I think the bridges in the county are a 5 in terms of they're critical to be rebuilt, remodeled, reinforced, whatever it is to do. And we're in the middle of that process. I have to apologize. Broadband. Actually, I think that we've already seen some results from that. The Dank fiber project that went through Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence counties back around just about 10 years ago now has already reaped some benefits, and I think in a variety of ways we have, I think, more cottage industries in the county now that sometimes people wouldn't realize. There's a lot of people that can telework from home, and there's more of that going on than people might be aware of. Then you have companies like Slick, for example, that is a company here within the county that has had the opportunity to expand their footprint. Just, I don't know how many fold, but it's major now. They're extending broadband out into the side roads in the county, and so in areas where dial-up was the only option, I think broadband has propagated itself a lot more. So I think, but I really think that is critical. I think that the Dank project was a great thing for the region, and now if we can just utilize that in greater ways, I mean, I think broadband, to me, is a 5. But there again, I don't know that the county, in terms of dollars, has a huge role in that. I mean, sometimes these are state and national issues. To me, I think the spread of broadband in this country is equivalent to the rural electrification in the United States in the 1920s.
Sure.
I mean, it is, yes, it is exactly, to me, the same kind of thing. Without the federal government putting the impetus behind getting electrical power out in all the countrysides, in all 50 states, I don't think it would have happened. Right. And I think the same thing is
Interstate
true
highway
in
wouldn't
broadband.
happen either.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, let me jump ahead to something, because that raises a question I was going to leave for a little bit later. And that is, what is or what should be the role of legislators beyond their specific powers. I mean, I know they're limited, and that's obviously I don't want to say a convenient excuse, but it's a limiting factor. On the other hand, you're all intelligent people, you're well informed. Is not there a role, so far, isn't there a role then that the legislators can play more informally in terms of advocacy, in terms of lobbying for the county, in terms of reaching out to people in the assembly, for that matter in Congress as well? I mean, legislators are going to get, Bill Owens has actually been very responsive, I think, to his constituents, but clearly, someone with an official position like yourself would have an easier time getting the ear of people with the power precisely to make those decisions. So isn't there a role for the legislators as representatives upwards, so to speak, of the
Absolutely.
Of the population?
There's no question about that. And Congressman Owens is a good example. I have probably in the 3 years that I've been in the legislature actually talked with him personally, face-to-face, probably 5 times about various issues. I-98 being one of them. Yeah, so I think that advocating for the needs of the county, whether they be specifically county legislature issues or not, is a role that I think county legislators can and should play, in my opinion, and I certainly try to do that. I have, I think, positive relationships with Senator Ritchie, Senator Griffo. Part of that is in my full-time job role as a school superintendent. I've interacted with them a great deal. Obviously, Assemblywoman Addie Russell also. Now, to be honest, it's gotten so much more complicated since the last census, because now we have in this county 7 assembly and senators.
Nightmare.
And some people have suggested that that gives us more voice.
No.
I would suggest that it gives us less voice.
We're a negligible
because
component of a
several
bunch
of
of
those
districts.
7 seats, those people could be elected whether no one in this county voted for them or not. So it's
and it separates, the unity that the county has at the county level from its ability to influence larger levels. Well, speaking of this question of local advocacy, I want to come back to the governor's regional economic development program, which has gotten a great deal of mostly self-generated favorable press and television. No, fine. That's what governments exist to do. And there have been a lot of very impressive projects, announced. One of the criticisms that one hears, particularly at the local level, is that the vast majority of this money is, first of all, it's given out as arrears grants, means you have to spend it to get it. And it really does very, very little to help start up local businesses. Its real function, it's been alleged, is to reward corporations who already have the capital, who are already planning to do it, to give them a kind of kickback to do it in upstate New York rather than New Jersey. But if you don't have the $2 million to start with, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference to get $100,000 at the end of the process. Now, there's an issue. First of all, I'm curious to see if that makes any sense to you. There's an issue in which it seems to me legislators could have some sort of influence, saying, hey, look, we understand the need to attract going concerns, but we also have a real need to support small, startup, innovative businesses, and they need some upfront seed money. They can't be expected to raise $2 million on their own in the hopes of getting 10% of it back 2 years from now.
I think that both initiatives are worthwhile, to be honest, and I think it's unfortunate in this country, maybe it's a natural outgrowth of our federalism, that we have states competing against each other,
which can lead to a race to the bottom.
I was just going to say that who can get to the bottom, who can get to the bottom fastest, and to attract businesses. I think some businesses are wiser than that, and I think there's other resources, whether they be human or natural, or
education, quality of life,
all those kind of things that play a lot.
Which suffer when you lose your tax base.
Companies' decisions, but I think there's a role for both. We do have the county has a seat at the table through our planning office personnel in St. Lawrence County that sit at the table, but one of the things the only thing we could do to actually change that is to lobby the governor's office, because the regulations with which the Regional Economic Development Committee operate are pretty well determined by the state. It's a lot of times, it's like a lot of things that we do in St. Lawrence County. the state may be the main source of funding, but with that comes they're going to do it this way and so forth. But I think you raise legitimate points, I think that we can try to sway the governor and his budget committee to maybe look at having a greater emphasis on both, because you're right about not many young people, shall we say, and it doesn't have to be young people, but are connected to,
or people who are simply new to the business
yes,
world.
Yeah,
I
are connected to people with
big bucks,
deep pockets, and that are interested in funding
Yep.
startups and small entrepreneurship.
So far, we've been carefully, scrupulously avoiding your area of original expertise. So let me hit you with a question about education in the county. Problems, opportunities, role for the public in addressing those problems.
Well, I think there's a huge role for the public in terms of advocacy with both the legislature and the governor's office and anyone in the county, I think, that has any connections with anybody in Albany. I think we should be beating this drum relentlessly, because no matter what, say, the county legislature does in terms of our operation, the government operation, our raising of revenue, whether we become incredibly efficient or those kind of things, the most of what we do is mandated by the state anyway. But but public schools, if you take the collective amount of property tax that's paid in St. Louis County to the school systems is much, much greater than what's paid to the county in property tax. And I think probably you would agree, if you stopped and thought about it, that your school tax you pay in September is larger than the tax you pay in January, and the tax you pay in January is county tax and town tax. So when you take just the county portion, everybody's largest tax in this county is school tax. There have been 2 different studies over the last 5 years funded by the Education Law Center, conducted by Rutgers University. They've been vetted and analyzed by a lot of experts, and I have never seen one thing where anybody suggested that the studies weren't valid. Now, New York State spends a lot of money on education, but I'll talk about why I think that's true in a minute. Of the 50 states in the United States, New York, in both these studies that were 2 or 3 years apart, ranked 45th or 46th in equity of funding. So, and what's ironic to me is when Governor Cuomo ran for office, I have a quote I could show you, that he said, in New York State, we have 2 education systems, not public and private. They're both public, one for the haves and one for the have-nots. Right. And poor school districts, whether they be in rural upstate New York, like St. Louis County, or whether they be urban centers, are not being treated fairly by any objective measure of funding by the state for public schools. And so we rank near the bottom of all the states.
And we are one of the poorest counties outside the Bronx in the States.
We rival the Bronx for unemployment rate
consistently.
And therefore, our unemployment rate is high.
In particularly desperate need of high-quality education.
We have a lot of high poverty, and the best road out for low socioeconomic groups is education. I mean, it's the only consistently successful route for upward mobility. So I think that there is a role for advocacy from every taxpayer out there in terms of...
What forms could that take?
I think writing letters, I think calling assembly people, senators. The truth of the matter is the funding of education in New York State follows the money. One of the reasons that we spend the most money on education than anywhere in the United States is because the cost of education on Long Island, in Westchester, in the wealthy suburbs is just incredibly high. You can actually have conversations with people on Long Island concerned about their school budget because they might lose the equestrian team.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about schools in northern New York who have eliminated almost all their JV sports, if you want to talk about extracurriculars, and I'm not even suggesting that's the most important thing. Yeah. But all kinds of extracurricular activities. But right now, you look at the high school curriculums in the 18 schools in St. Louis County, compared to even what they were 10 or 15 years ago, and the number of electives, the opportunities, the different options for students has just decreased, over that time. So part of it's about equity in terms of taxation and funding, and part of it's about equity for opportunity for students. I mean, they're equally important issues. So, it's probably not a good thing to get me started on this conversation because I'm very passionate about it, and
that's why we left it to the end. And we are fairly close to the end. So, a couple of minutes. What would you like to add that we haven't touched on?
I would just like to say that I enjoy my work on the county legislature. I think I've worked well with people from all different areas of the county and different parties, and I've always thought that giving back to your community is important, and public office is one way that you can do that. There's obviously a lot of other avenues too that I did previously in my career, and I'm pleased to have the opportunity to serve the people of District 9 in the town of Canton. So, and thank you for this opportunity, and I'm really pleased to see. I think the League of Women Voters is such a wonderful organization.
And not for women only.
That's right. And they're, because they're nonpartisan, they just want to get information out there. And I also thank Clarkson and the students that are here today for making this opportunity possible. And thank you.
Well, thank you, and that enables me to segue into what I hope we can agree on, a joint communique to everyone. Get out and vote.
Absolutely.
And get your friends out and vote.
Yep, it's critically important. It's disingenuous to complain about government if you don't exercise your right to vote.
Hello again. I'm sorry, but our time is up. Thank you for these candidate conversations and a production of the North Country Matters, produced here in the studios of WCKN on the campus of Clarkson University. This show is a civic collaboration between the St. Lawrence County branch of American Association of University of Women, the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, and Communication and Media Department here at Clarkson University. Next time, remember, North Country Matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.